Everyone wanna just rap nowadays. No content, just crap nowadays. Piercing the lips with tats on their face. Cross on foreheads with a kush gauge. Marley's kills more brain cells. Street doors revolve, makes them stay in cells. No service hours, you're doing dead time in a cellar with a fella with parking fines. What's the world coming to? Not to an end, but an end for those that can't comprehend. Those that can't think or use faculties with no nationality would be casualties. King Alfred planned victims take here like the Jews under Hitler, but vapor. No ashes, calling the masses. No suits, no wake, no casket.
But even when you deal with nationality, what the problem left is divine and national. Right. So the deal is this: it's sovereignty itself does not stand on its own. Right. Sovereignty only comes with nationality. So what we do is we claim our nationality. We already got sovereignty. Right. Now Europeans who are here as occupants and naturalized citizens, they have found out that they have hit a wall because they can't be the sovereign. Right. Now they can be charged for impersonating the sovereign, but you can't.
Yeah, I know.
Because they can be sovereign when they in, like, say, Germany, they're German. Yeah. Right? You understand this. Right. A lot of our people didn't really get this at first. Now the other thing that gets me about what we don't seem to did our studies on, and that is like, you know, this whole story. You ain't really a real Moor if you know you're in the temple. All right. All right. Now look. How you going to gain your lost? Now the prophet said you will gain back your heritage, and lost the state. Seemingly lost the state. But it'll be done in a conflict, can't be total words. Right. Now, to describe to you where that is, you read chapter 47. Right. Now, if chapter 47 describes our geographical boundaries of the empire of the dominions, why we keep acting like it's the Europeans? Yeah. And then, in case you don't realize it, then tell me where is then the estate that the prophet said you were going to gain back? Where is it? Well, you'll never get it if you don't know where it is. You see, these are the common sense things. So what happens is clubism, which is from the corruption. You know that. That's why you won't even be bothered. A lot of people didn't want to be bothered with temples because when you say religion, of course, religion is law, order, and governing principles. Absolutely. And civic. Absolutely. Divine and national. Here's the deal. You can't apply the national if you don't have the divine. That's right. But you can't give the divine to someone.
Right. Yeah, you can't give it to someone. Right. You can't keep recycling the same book. It's not.
That's
it's
a corruption.
There, but it's not there.
Let me tell you what else it is. It's a corruption and what's called clubism. Yeah. So listen to this. You gotta love this, right? So that guy says, well, you know, you gotta pay dues and you gotta be in the temple in order to be a Moor. What? Young fella comes up with, at this point, my son don't matter. Right. Put something one-on-one, opens it up. Oh, so you're only a real Moor if you're in a temple? Let me see. Right. Question number 14. Right. Why are you a Moor? Because you're descendants of Moroccans. Excuse me, that's why we're Moors now. Right. Wait a minute, what did you say? Oh, you didn't read this? Yeah. That's when you know that they're steeped in the clubism. Yeah. But in this time now with information, it's kind of being like thrown, you know, it's coming off, it's coming off, you know.
I have no choice.
Cause we gotta have a connection. And I figure like, you know, it's like, remember before people say, well, let me see you drive with no license, you know, right there, the language, you know, they want to know is travel, right? Let me see you do it. Too many people have done it, are doing it, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to try to stop you. What are you talking about? This is food coming off their plate right now. Right?
Oh,
look,
yeah, I know.
Now look at South Carolina.
I did it for 6 years.
Look. Put it on the map.
Pedro can tell you, we came up there through Canada on our plates.
See?
Through on our plates. Bam, here go ID.
And there's no problem, is it?
We went straight into Canada.
No problem.
And came back, no problem.
See, it's when you exercise your rights, and you know you have it right here on your dial plate, and you know, even if they're gonna hinder you for a minute, you're just gonna be hindered. You know, hindered but not detained, right? Well, you know, not arrested.
Right, not arrested.
Well, wait a minute, let me see. What do you mean you don't know? It's right here. Okay, so now here we are with identification card. Boom. We got an identification card, got a spirit on it that the card itself supports. I mean, I'm just saying the card what we've created. It right there tells you everything you need to know. I mean, everything. National domicile, ancestral estate. I mean, it's so hard that people look at it and say, well, I went to, I had to get a federal credit union account for, obvious reasons, and using the EIN, not SSN. I ain't gonna use that no more, because, that's different. That SSN is a whole different program. So I took the card, right? Well, this isn't a state card. State ID. I said, yes, it is. It's just not a corporate state ID. You gotta know how to answer them. You're right. It's not a corporate state ID, but it's a nation state. First nation state ID. Then you go to the Aboriginal Indigenous rights to establish your own identity that must be respected. So now these people talking about what do they say? Your identity. First of all, how are they going to take your property from you? It's your property.
That's what me and Kucho was talking about. It's in the federal rules of evidence. Self-identification is 901 in the federal rules of evidence.
Right.
Self-identification.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Can't nobody identify you but you. Matter of fact, this whole mission of the Prophet King was to teach you to be yourself. What do you mean? Help me. Who's somebody else going to? They can't identify you.
So really,
it's there.
It puts a lot of paperwork obsolete.
Right.
Really?
No. See, here's the deal. If you really know what you know, you never needed the paper.
That's what I'm saying. It really puts it out.
And this is why we tell people, you got to be able to stand without the paper. Matter of fact, this brother that came to the class that time, well, I got to go check the book. I said, no, brother, you standing on your 2 feet. You better know what you're talking about, especially when you come to interrupt somebody else's class. And I got to be on my feet to respond to you. I think you need to know what you're bringing.
You better come right.
You better not need to have to open that book to say what you got to say next. But it's we know that ultimately, see, here's what it is. Let me tell you the difference between declaration and proclamation. The prophet said, all you got, if you don't do nothing else, declare. Why? Because it's already proclaimed, really. But however, proclaiming absolutely means printing, whereas declaring does not necessarily mean that it's in written form. So what you're talking about is the absolution of declaring. Here's what's happening. See, when you declare the nationality, it comes from within. You can stand right here and declare it, right? In front of a couple witnesses or to yourself. Then you start being who you are, right? No paper involved. People are using the paper first and never declaring.
Declaring, Think the paper makes them,
Because it's not the paper. Right. But here's the paper. You should study it.
It's the heart.
Right.
Like you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But here's a new thing. I mean, it ain't a new thing. These Europeans, we have found out, occupiers, have been claiming the land. Now, we know that land means the building that's on it. We know this already. Nobody should be without a place to live. Nobody. Because it's not theirs. They are saying that they are administrators, right? Well, then they're just proving you're administrating. What are you administrating? Our estates.
I mean, that you're nothing more than trustee game.
That's right. And now, getting to the tribal name. I'm glad that, I know you always know, but a lot of other people wanted to stop and say I'm an Indian. We're not Indians. This ain't India. That name, that tribal family attribute is just a family. What they call tribe name is a family name. Family of Moors.
And now it's federalized as a coined term, and you don't even want to use that.
Listen, because you never were Indian.
That's right.
And if you read Clinton's executive order 10375, I think, don't quote me on that. I'll tell you when it was 1987 implementation of human rights. It's 2 pages. Turn it over, double side, right about there, around paragraph 5. You know what he says? He says federally reserved Indians and Native Americans. He makes the distinction. So they're like, if you're Indian, then you need to go to the BIA, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. You see? So we're getting there because, like Prophet said, you need each other, but you need each other more later. Not later, it's now. And we can all come together and see that we're one. Because I'm telling you, we could cancel almost all this stuff overnight. The only one thing I want to know, somebody can have, this is what I'm thinking. I'm not sure. When the blood that's going to be in the street that we're warned about, right? I don't think it's necessarily our blood unless we're going to get in the way and not know what we're supposed to do.
That civil war, because this financial crash is going to create a civil war, and that's going to be that blood in the street, like you said.
But that's the Europeans.
That's the Europeans.
They're going to have a fizzy fit when they find out
their money is
you
gone.
don't have, you never did have money.
That's right.
All that you work for isn't yours.
Right.
It's happening now. They're killing, and you know what they start doing? They start killing politicians.
Yep.
Now, people, I keep hearing over and over again this vision of people saying they're going to be running down the street after attorneys.
Right.
Trying to get the attorneys because, you know, they put them they're the agents. So I'm thinking
they're the monkeys in the Wizard of Oz.
the blood's not going to be our blood necessarily.
Right.
Some of us is going to get mixed up in there because we won't listen. Because we hard-hearted. But for the most part, it's going to be them. We're going to have to protect ourselves from the anarchy they're creating, because we know our government is not an anarchy. Because government is, we know what it is.
It's going to be just like the 1930s when they crashed. You know, we was cool.
Hey.
We was cool. Like, oh, for real, that happened?
I'm surprised.
I didn't know nothing about it.
For real.
So, but I think with the vibration of the planet moving faster now, and a lot of people's brainwaves can't keep up with that. What they call a new paradigm is really the movement of the vibration. The vibration of the planet's moving, Earth, everything, and so people are losing their mind now.
Oh yeah.
Right?
They twerking.
Am I right? That's what's happening.
You're right.
They can't keep up with it.
It's that zombie effect.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, they always told us the whole story and all that stuff anyway. Like when I was a little girl, right? Like I know where we are now. We're the raising of the dead from the graves. But when you were young, when I was young, and they, you know, I had to go to Sunday school. My parents didn't force us to church, but Sunday school, we lived right next door, you know what I mean? I had to go there and learn the basics. And my mind was, I don't want to be around when people start coming up out of the grave.
For real.
They're going to come up out of the grave.
Bite your neck.
But, you know, now I know what it is, man. I know exactly what it is. So,
The Walking Dead.
yeah, it's the raising of the Walking Dead.
Some of them don't make the full transition.
No, I know. I know. You put it inside that box. But you know, but it's the raising of the living dead, you're saying. But then what about those? The living dead. But some are going to gain consciousness and become alive. And some not.
Oh, okay.
Because y'all saw the movie Lincoln, the Vampire.
Yeah, vampires. Yeah, the vampires. Yeah, that was a heavy one.
You see how quick they covered up with another Lincoln?
Yeah, to counteract that. Yeah.
Brother said, "Hey, I need for you to do me a writ.
I heard it.
A writ of freedom.
I heard it.
Negro, you already free. You was never enslaved, remember? You was always free. You never enslaved. Hold up, yo, they just dropped the
They just dropped, yeah.
right
I
there.
think what it was is that they thought he wasn't free because most were not. And he said, I need to have my paper.
Yeah.
But let's think about what
Right.
he really didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he represented.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, in real life, he represented
More, name more.
Yeah.
He represented them.
Yeah.
That's right.
He said he might be a Moor, but he's not.
Not a Negro.
Right.
Yeah. But that's funny about that paperwork though, because we just got off the paper chase. We still doing because see he did it one way. That was one person saying, look, they think I'm not free.
Right.
Let's think about that paper. You said you don't need to have it now. No, we really don't. We really don't. But we just came out of that thing where it was all about the paper. And look, it did just make an effect.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for people like yourself, myself, Kojo, you, and whoever else putting in writs, we wouldn't be at this dawn where we're at.
Yeah.
That's true.
We wouldn't be there.
Right. And wouldn't have them to have to reveal the truth. You know, just like you just went on a cruise last week. You know what I'm saying, to Mexico, the Cozumel, and the tour guy just came out the box and said, yeah, the Olmecs, they the ones who developed this. They built all these pyramids. There was the black Egyptians, and they was here first. And the Mayans, all them is their children. The Toltecs, the Mayans, the Incas, that's their children.
Olmecs was Washington.
Exactly.
The guy did that.
And he was a Mayan. And he was Mayan.
Oh, the guide was a Mayan.
He was a Mayan. The guy was a Mayan, speaking Yucatan Mayan language, Spanish, as well as also English, and just came out the box and said, yo, about 4 years ago, I just knew I had to come out and tell the truth. I said, yeah, I know. We've seen Obama become president. That's when you knew you had to tell the truth. And he said, so, but I'm glad something had to spark me, because I know before Obama became president, he was down there in 2000 and, I think he was down there in 2005. The tour guide, when my wife asked him, said, well, what about the Olmecs? Well, they're the mothers of civilization, but we don't know too much about them. Next question. Just like that. What? Yeah, he did it just like that. But this one, he was like out the box. He started white folks all up front. You know what I'm saying? And he was not nice. He was like, yeah, we know about your George Washingtons, and yeah, how y'all came over and stole the land from the natives. He just went in. I was like, good God,
Oh, my Lord.
Dude. We got a tape too, so we get ready to cut that up.
This European vibrates on a different, most all of them, not all of them.
Right.
Because remember, Prophet says Europeans are helping me.
Right.
It's your problem.
Right.
But most of them vibrate on a different level, as you already know, right? But with Obama, like they still try to be doing some silly stuff.
Right.
When we all know that he's just the president of a corporation.
Right.
We know this.
Right.
He's doing his job.
What's that?
He's the president of a corporation.
Peace, good sister. I see your dick, huh?
This is last term though. I wonder what is going to. Oh man, we got to do some more work before any of them other ones get back in there, man.
I see the reason why she came, man.
Oh, his wife? Ooh. Now, she could, because Hillary ran.
Hillary ran, yeah, Hillary ran.
Oh, that would be divine.
Man, Obama, sell out.
They do.
Obama ain't no sellout. Obama's a president of a corporation, and that's his job.
That's his job.
He has no obligation to us, no one that we have to each other. And the Constitution is the constituency that holds it together. And at least he does follow and enforce the Constitution out of his lips more than anyone else I've ever seen.
That's true.
Outside of that, he's playing in a corporate arena that has nothing to do with Morris.
And he always, before he became elected, he always referred to us as American citizens.
Yeah. Did you hear what he said in his thing?
After he became, then he started saying U.S.
Yeah.
Before that, he never used the word U.S. He never would say U.S. He always said American.
But did you hear his address? Did you hear what he said to
Which
the
one?
Germans? He said just recently about.
No. What happened? What did he say?
I'm going to
Let
me tell you what he said.
Slide in some nice
all the
stuff.
stuff about immigration.
Right.
He said before you, he said Germans, Italians, whatever like that.
Right.
He says before you were us, you were them. Yes, he came right out and said it. It was harsh too. Yes, he did. And he said we are all guided by the what? What did he say? North Star. He's dropping it. You gotta listen to him.
I know he is.
You missed that. I'm gonna try to find that for you.
I was on a cruise.
You was on a cruise?
Look, he did all that, but still signed that executive order for Monsanto's.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you talking about
Monsanto's
the act for terminating
Protection Act. Yeah.
Protection of who?
For Monsanto's, like where it's to where like if we bring Monsanto's to court. The court can't even hear the case.
Right, they're immune.
They're immune to everything.
Right.
They putting all the GMOs in the food and
Yeah. He just signed that. There's a lot that he do. He got a good appearance, but
has to be something
he's
behind
doing
No, there's something behind that.
Behind it.
It's got to be something behind it because, like I said, he's limited anyway. Let's not get this.
Yeah, I know.
He's limited anyway, but at the same time, be mindful of the climate right now. It's a lot of agitation. These Europeans are losing food off their plates. They're beasts. They try stuff. If we don't make connections now internationally, because we're protected by international law.
Right.
National law is international law for us. If we don't make those connections, which are being made, because we're actually reaching out to the international community, because if we don't say that anything's wrong, they can't help you.
Of course.
All right, so he's getting pressure too.
Of course.
Remember, he's a pawn.
He's a pawn, yeah.
In the end.
That's why I say he made to make it look good in appearance, but he will sit down and use that pen. He put NDAA in there, like where a drone can come grab you and take you off. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot that pros and cons with them.
I suppose so. One thing he also did though, well, yeah, I guess if a drone comes and grabs you.
That's the national movement, though.
Look, that's look, he also signed the 10-year extension on indigenous.
That's over.
Yeah,
whether he signed it or not, it still is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
But I'm
saying?
saying he give an extension on it because remember they wasn't even going to sign it. The United States was the only country holding back.
And Canada.
So
and Canada too. We're holding on.
But that's why we got the Moorish Divine and National Movement, because under the First Amendment, because it's divine and national, the Religious Freedom Clause, they can't legislate nothing dealing with your divine right. So if you stand on that, I mean, you know, it's a different. True. Yeah. So I mean, I see it like that.
I think we need to be more active than what we've been, rather than. Because we, like I said, we know that his position is a limited one, but he came out reaching out.
You know,
they might be trying to cut him off now.
You know what might be better than us being active? First, we have to come together. It's good we active.
So that's an active form.
I know, but it's activity here that's not linked with the activity here, but it's all related. But they don't come together over some religious belief or
But what is the United,
his title
what is the United of Asia though? On the one, it says the United of Asia.
United of Asia, true.
So here and everywhere else, and that's what's happening.
True.
That is what's happening.
Let me bring up a point. When you go back to Moorish culture, when you read History of the Moorish Empire in Europe, Volume 1, it says we had communal marriage.
We just talked to him.
Now, you can't have that without a religious umbrella. Because otherwise you'd be a bigamist. So how can we practice our culture and still hold on to the patriarchy? We can't.
Patriarchy's down.
Right. Because there is no King Bee. There is no King Ant. There is no King Termite. In nature, there is no king. So if we are natural people, there's a queen. True. But there is no king. There's a queen of Sheba. There is no king of Sheba.
Have y'all seen the definition of the Moabite from 1836, Webster's or Oxford's? Have you seen the definition?
Nah.
It says the law.
I probably did, but I didn't.
The law, the bailiff. That's what I'm gonna show it to you. I gotta read it. So, it says the law, the bailiff, an officer of the law, the bailiff.
As a bailiff.
As a bailiff.
And if they have a problem,
that's what Moabite is. She.
Yeah, she.
Okay.
Say Judge Bosnato Dinkle, acting judge, because they're all actors. Acting judge, doing business as, and then you name the corporate entity. And then in the court warranto, you command for them to produce for the public record their delegation of authority order, that's DOAO, right? Their indemnity bond number, which they must have to do business. Right? That's what you go after when they violate the law and they violate their charter. Do you understand? 9 times out of 10, they'll put a burden on you without them satisfying their obligation. But then again, you must also be aware to counter Noble Drali in 1933, Delano Roosevelt backed up Woodrow Wilson with transferring the seats of the government to the IMF. And the United States federal government exists today in name only because it exists. So now all of the corporate states, the states of, distinguished from the state republics, are done too. See, it's sort of like they used to have channels at a Rickles hardware store, home centers, before Lowe's and before a Home Depot. When they disappeared, their stock disappeared. Do you understand? When the United States Corporation, which was last registered, and I think it was 25, wasn't it? 25? 35 at the most, 25. Was dissolved in 1933 with the Banking Act. and the trade, and also with
That'd be the bankruptcy.
House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, June the 5th, 1933. They were done. The deal is, with the decolonization or the dissolution of that order, the Moors were supposed to be being taught nationality is supposed to operate concurrently. But due to the fact that COINTELPRO operations in the temples, the grand sheiks and grand governors weren't teaching nationality. They started telling the people this was a church, only a religious organization. And so the national side of the movement had been suppressed from inside. Do you understand? And so now Moors are suffering Negro acts that's not even supposed to be on you. Because your status is corrected. Do you see? And so the problem we have today with, we have a lot of temples, because keep in mind the temples are right, but you have a lot of infiltrators running the positions with the intent of overthrowing the prophet from inside and looking legitimate. This is why it's very important for people to really study what the prophet said, so they'll know how to measure things, because this represents the turnover of government, world government, even though this stuff is, it's an humble position that we have. However, when we speak, the world shakes. So don't underestimate what's going on here. And so you have counter COINTELPRO or counterintelligence activities by others, you understand, not wanting these people to really get conscious, because this represents Susie ain't going to college. This represents you walking down the street and deciding to reclaim your estate, and that's any and all, because you're the heirs to the world's greatest estate, and you've been under occupation, and the occupiers have been pretending to own the land and the resources, and they don't. Do you understand? Meanwhile, they got stocks and bonds floating around the world in other governments that are leaned against the Moorish estate, with us being claimed as wards of the state, saying that we are incompetent and thus incapable of receiving our inheritance, and thus classified as having the status of minors, thus minority, thus not inheritable. Do you understand? And then, like the prophets commanded in, Act 1 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, for the chairman, the moderators, grand sheiks, etc., they're put in power to make law. Then they started telling the people that draw lead in civics. And so the people dismissed that side, which was to their injury. And so now that we're suffering these injuries like that, they don't even know fundamental protocols. They don't even know how to approach this stuff. You understand what I'm saying to you? And they're violating international law, stealing Moorish property, and they're the foreigner.
That's right.
And then holding your stuff at ransom, and then making you pay a ransom for your stuff on your own land, and you got the fence. And then the grand governor is telling you that draw lead in civics. See what the problem is? Therefore, the prophet said every temple must have a school. You say maybe, must. Right? He says, help me in my mission to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution of the United States of America. So every Moorish American should know constitutional law, and they don't.
That's right.
So it's where we are, but we can fix that. And so the deal of it is, he said, I've given you more than enough to save a nation. Now go out on my word and redeem your people. And on all the ministers' papers, don't it say hedges and highways? And what have they done? They've made these little temple clubs and try to act like the Moors can't be who they are unless they come to their particular club. It is thoroughly corrupt, COINTELPRO operations. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So you want to still work for unity, but you have to not be discouraged by the corruption, because it's your birthright. It has nothing to do with what people believe or what they don't believe. And it's not unlike, as we were talking earlier, even convincing people who don't know, that that's their pedigree. When they think it's some kind of religious system because some grand governor said so. Take you to an ordinary dictionary and prove to you. The world knows who you are. You know, but anyway, what you want to do is a court warrant. And you can go on the site and see examples of them. Yes. Actually, temples are regencies. And so the fundamentals of administrative functions should be known by all Moorish Americans. Fundamentals of consular, not council, consular principles based on international law, because Noble Drawley said what? Take your places amongst the affairs of men. That's international law. You know, and he said for us to be recognized by the nations of the earth, we must fess up to constitutional principles. And people repeat that all the time, but if you test them just in general conversation, they're not qualified. And so we have to fix that. And again, you know, this is great when you have a temple opening up with grand sheiks and sheikesses that are on that degree from the door, because that's what's needed. You know, and as a matter of fact, it is the lack of that why them temples are empty. Because they betrayed the prophet. And you know how you say when somebody's operating in name only and not in principle, and then blocking information so that people can't figure out that they're really corrupt. That's why they don't want that newspaper. That's why they don't want those schools. That's why they condemn anybody that teaches constitutional law, even though it's clearly there right in divine warning. Why? Because as soon as people start studying, they'll recognize that them people are COINTELPRO operatives. You know what I'm saying? They won't be giving them their lunch money. You know, the schools that don't, well, that's what they've been doing. They've been taking people's finances, you know, misappropriating it, promising them, never producing anything, watching the families fall apart, and people be wondering, well, how come there's nothing going on? They don't know that these people are COINTELPRO. That's why the prophet said, be careful, Moors, some of your own brothers and sisters with turbans and feathers on, trying to put you back into slavery. You know, and it is what it is. So let's get to work, you know, let's not get caught up in the emotions, take the emotions and turn it into activity, knowledge, you know. And so the other thing I'll bring to your attention is when you look at the Circle 7, Quran, you'll notice that chapter 1 is the only chapter that is not enumerated at all. Only chapter. Now it's the fall of men, creation and fall of man, right? But actually in the keys there is the rise. And then it's giving you your zodiac constitution right in there. But it's given in a way so people don't be offended, you know, because we all spooked up. And once you go in it, then you're supposed to know, they did, like, give me the Circle 7 Quran, and I'll show you. But keep in mind that all the, just like when we go into this, like when we went into this building here, how many people noticed that right behind Rahsmariah's table, the two dual emblematic flags there? They had the red background, then had the white canton in the center, and then the gold star interlaced in it. How many people recognize what that is? Did anybody notice it?
I see it.
You saw it? All right. That white incantation in the center is the Moabite flag. It is a white flag with a gold star and interposed on the red background, so it is both the ancient of the ancient and the ancient coming to the modern. So that's symbolic. It's not a flag in itself, but it's an interposition of both flags. The Moabites, when women ruled, that's the Moabite nation. When it becomes the red, that's the Moorish nation. They're the same. Do you understand? The Moabite is matriarchy. The Moorish is patriarchy. Yet its foundation is still matriarchy. So you're supposed to know that. And it's also the symbol of the mother-father principle. It's like in the prayer, that's where I was saying, you know, Allah, feminine, the father of the universe, is giving you the keys to religion. It's mother-father. Elohim means mother-father, but the people look at it as it means, they'll say that it means God, but the priest will never tell them that that word means mother-father. Do you understand? Eloah is Ibri for the feminine, and Im is the mas, or the masculine principle, and that's the creative force, the mother-father principle. And so Elohim is plural, Eloah is singular. You know, so once you know those things, even in the beginning of the prayers, he's sending you to the keys of all religion. And so people who don't understand it will start getting caught up in the male-female argument when that's not it. Do you understand? It's the positive and negative forces in nature manifested in the flesh. You understand? And he's giving you the keys that the priesthood removed so that we would not understand the books. And I'm going to chapter 1. I'm going to get up a little bit and give you a key. So in chapter 1, creation and fall of man, let's go to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, right? And watch this. And notice that none of these are numbered like the others, right? Now these soul attributes became a body beautiful, a multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul, and here he tarries many ages until his lessons all are learned. And here, he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essences took on a final garb, the perfumes and the odors and the true sensations, and all love made were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. And without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, and that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthright just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yes, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, but let him know, and this is your key to your zodiac constitution, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun, and the spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars are his protectors and his guide. Notice that it harmonizes with the prayer. So it says, Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation. And here it says, the cherubim, the seraphim that rules the stations of the sun of the mighty Allah are your protectors and your guide. For those who don't know, it would appear to be a conflict, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? How many people notice that? He's giving you the stations of the sun. You're supposed to know yourself. You're supposed to chart yourself. And then you see your strengths, you see your weaknesses, and thereby you use the compass and the square to guide your way. Now you go to chapter 5. Well, then you see the whole point? Oh, so anyway, so Allah who rules the solar stars are his protectors and guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served his purpose well, will fall and be no more. They're your zodiac constitution. You understand? And so they're in control of your lost estate. This is why they are bound, duty bound by the zodiac constitution to supply you with food, clothing, and shelter, because it's your stuff. Now that they've been dissolved, Drew Ali set it in place for the Grand CCTV and ETC to make law. They violated and betrayed the prophets, so they thought they did. That's why he said they may have slowed me down. They're going to slow me down, but they cannot stop me. So they thought they got rid of them. Good. Let them have their fun. Your job is to make sure the youth know it now. And take this information to the people you want to save yourself. Go teach somebody who doesn't know. whether they got a turban or a fez on or not. He said, come all ye Asiatics of North America and hear the truth about your nationality and birthright. So you get the principles down, the principles of government down, start declaring, start affirming, and as time passes, their stuff will fall away. Their stuff falls away when you stand up. It's sort of like a seesaw. You know what I mean? Man, how come we can't do this? How come we don't have this? And it has more to do with our inactivity, because they're active. All you gotta do is go in that building where we just left, and you see all that stuff around there, and then people don't know that's Moorish. They're just codifying it, using it, running us with our own stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like Grand Sheik said, that's our stuff. We ain't renting nothing. Right now, we're just dealing with what it is. But what we want to do is get the Moors really competent. Because actually, you can just go claim this stuff. But we want to limit confusion, so make sure everybody understands what's up. And you ain't supposed to be paying rent. They're supposed to be paying taxes and rent to you. That's why Raleigh said, I'm going to keep these Europeans here long enough to teach you government. And he says, listen to your radios, keep up with the electronic age, because I'm going to make that European tell you the truth. And this is why you see with that European in California, with that European son, when he claimed the 3.5 million note house, took a judicial notice and everything, and they come in, you ain't Morris? He says, I am. Got an elevator and all this other stuff. And then same thing with the brother from Brazil. They came up and nationalized a building in Florida. Was it Florida?
Florida.
I thought it was California.
It might be Cali, it doesn't matter, because it's a lot of others that you don't hear about too. And they're looking at this momentum take place, and so they're trying to slander the Moors, because what this represents is, because the banks are holders. Banks, you got to go into banking law. Banks can't own property, so when they say the bank owns stuff, they lie in. What they're doing, stealing people's estate, who don't know they have an estate, and who are charged with abandonment for not claiming their estate. That's what the foreclosures are. You know, how can you foreclose when there was a closing? Because for means before. So how are you going to have a foreclosing after a closing?
Right.
It's a fraud. You know. But anyway, you want to do a quo warranto? Write that. I'm going to write that down. Make sure.
I got it.
Quo warranto. You're going to do a discovery. You want the bond number. Get the bond. This is what you're going to do. In every area where everybody is, all the regencies, which are temples, they should have the names of all so-called public servants that are operating in the territories, inclusive of their surety bond numbers, their indemnity bond numbers, their charters. And it should be put in a database and shared. Whenever a Moor has an issue, that stuff's supposed to come up automatically, and it's supposed to be issued right from the temples, which are regency. The Grand Sheik assigns a mufti to go deal, they're not supposed to be dealing with you directly.
Exactly.
You know, because it's government.
Yeah. How do we obtain all of that without them giving us status?
See, Secretary of State, you can go to the Commissioner of Insurance. And I'll call you and give you a few more other details. As a matter of fact, Ross will have them on the sites anyway.
What is it that he's trying to obtain?
When they're ducking, when people are going for the indemnity bond, because they know when you go for the indemnity bond, they know you know laws, and then they start running. So yeah, so they do all kind of stuff to these people because they know that they've bought off enough of these Grand Sheiks, and they're not going to really teach them. So they feel sort of pretty secure. That's why they're upset with other Moorish groups who are studying. And they're trying to make them illegitimate unless they're under the Grand Sheiks that they control under COINTELPRO, because they know they ain't going to teach them nothing. Because soon as people learn law, they're going after their bond numbers, somebody's getting fired. You understand?
Really?
Now this is what happens. Like say for instance, all right, they stole your conveyance, right? Right. Now, even with the flyers that we give people, we're showing you stare decisis res judicata. Established law of the land. They're violating established law. Clearly, you understand they're racketeering, but nobody ever charges them. You see? People starts trying to make deals with them rather than going after their bond. So like you file a complaint on the issue, you do a deposition on everything that took place, have names, etc. Soon as you start going after that bond, if there's 3 reports, immediately their bond's going up. So the commissioner's going to call, the city commissioner's going to call, because they're going to get a call from either Travelers Insurance or Wells Fargo, whoever's carrying their bonds, and they're going to see whether they have an individual bond or whether they have a cover bond with a lot of them, because they're supposed to have individual bonds, but they got cover bonds, right? And then you're going after them under United States Code of Law, Title 241, 242, under call of law, violating your rights, restricting your rights, racketeering, RICO Act, everything. Guess what happens? The bond's going to go up now. The city has to decide whether they can afford to pay for the insurance that's going to cost for that person who's violating the people to be working and then compensating them too. And then the insurance company's not going to take that hit, because now you're going after gold and silver coin according to constitutional principles, not some fiat, right? So now, Rahsmariah, remember how many of you are familiar with the case with Grand Chief Nature Il Bay a couple years ago? Now, the general concept that is given to the public, because they always misrepresent things in the public. They say it was dismissed with prejudice, right? And so it appears a loss, right? Now, this is what happened. The next month, the feds came into Wall Township and to Asbury Park. And just local, not outside, local, you had 17 people local, their heads rolled. They was out of a job. But yet the public says, they didn't win. You know we didn't win, it wasn't in the sense of that, if you get the point. But when they know that you're going to go after their bonds, and these people begin to understand nationality and birthright and start exercising it, because remember the prophet said they're living off your virtues. Translation, they're vampires. Just, you know, because we can't handle stuff, you know, because we all spooked up, so he says they're living off your virtues. And so saying they're blood sucking. Do you understand? So you have their names, like say for instance, and then when you put the instruments in, take the, whatever the case number is on the issue, and make everything an affidavit. An affidavit in law must be rebutted, or it stands.
That's right.
You put a motion, it's at the discretion of the judge. And it is, in its nature, gives them jurisdiction even when they don't have jurisdiction. And they don't have jurisdiction because they're not judges, they're administrative clerks pretending to be judges. You know, yes. And so what you have is more suffering under the Negro Acts, which is supposed to be dead. They just got fezzes on. You know, talking about nationality, don't know national laws. Like, it's really a disgrace. You know what I mean? But a lot of Moors, unless they're taught, are not aware that they're in violation of their own charter. You know, and see, being Moorish Americans, you know, we're part and parcel of this said government and must live life accordingly. And so when you don't know constitutional law, you're in contempt. You understand? And so they take advantage of you because they actually have contempt, because you're in contempt for not carrying out your own law but looking for the benefit of the law. You see the problem? And a lot of times people don't look at it this way. They just look at the fact that the Europeans taking advantage of us. Well, that's dirty because he's taking advantage of us. You know, well, yes and no, because we're out of order. But again, so you already know what to do with that. Make sure, you know.
I'm going down there Monday.
Yeah.
Because they came to try to kidnap him.
Yeah.
Presenting his nationality card to him.
Yeah.
Standing on his nationality. And then when they figured out what his straw name was, they decided to come to the so-called residence while he wasn't there. My mother was there. Knocked on the door, pushed their way through the door, saying they had a warrant to come in there looking for him.
That's a violation, first of all, yes.
They didn't have no warrant.
Of course they did. Because they, now keep this in mind, and when you look up, you're going to find that they're private agents for the insurance companies. They have no validity of operating in law. They have no business carrying guns. They're private highwaymen. Yes. They're doing what is called the RICO Act. So you're going to do the RICO law. Also human trafficking. Also, you want to make sure that everybody has on their...
It's all in Title 18, ain't it?
Yes, that, but you also want to do the punishment and prevention of the crime of genocide. Pull that down, make sure everybody has a copy of that. You're going to use that in your complaints. You do courtesy copies to outside jurisdiction, because anything that you send within their jurisdiction, they want to bury it. Do you understand? So when you're operating from a concept, oh, that's the law. They're not the law. They're private claimers. They're claimers and ghouls. They're exercising authority because the Moors have not stepped up to their claim. I mean, you've got Moorish Americans, but they're playing church. Well, it's the truth. And so from an international law perspective, they have no what you call protection. Not because it isn't there, because they've abandoned it. The same way when they claim houses, abandon the estate. So when you're talking about abandonment in law, you're talking about rights and property. You see? And so Moors must know that, so that they can get back on track of what the prophet said and not get into the spooky idea of how they've been using this information. Because we're supposed to be, you know, whenever they even approach a Moor, Grand Chief's supposed to send consular down there immediately, and this will release him in accord with international law.
That's what I'll be doing already.
Yeah, because you know. But then they'll take you and slander you from the fake Grand Chiefs. But people need to know that they're COINTELPRO operatives. Don't get angry, but you need to know what they are. But once you understand how serious this information is, you don't get emotional about it, but understand. While this information is being introduced to our people, reintroduced to our people. That's why he said bringing them back into the constitutional fold of government. You've got enemies. Because this represents that Europeans are going to have to start swimming. This is bigger. See, this is really bigger than what people think it is. They're looking at, you know, getting rid of racism, what they think racism is, prejudice, getting their children educated properly and stuff like that. And this European is recognizing you ain't got nowhere to go. This is why you see, if you do research on websites, you'll see that so-called wealthy Europeans, they'll say wealthy white Americans, they're not white people, and they ain't Americans, are denouncing their U.S. citizenship at a rate of roughly 165 a week, as fast as it can be administered. And they're trying, yes, and they're trying to open up accounts. As a matter of fact, many of your European countries are not opening up any more so-called American accounts because they're under the treaty too. And the IRS can come get them, and then plus the fiat is really debt notes. They're really for bookkeeping. Now, because the people here have been fooled in thinking they're getting paid, they're really sharecropping. You understand? And all of the wealth that the United States has is really bonds against the Moorish estate. You see, so in the real world, it only has value as long as there's an attachment to the estate. Outside that, it's dead paper. And it's dead paper anyway, but this is why you see a lot of nation states are dissolving all their T-bonds as fast as they can without causing too much alarm, because their citizens are going to come choke them if they can get their hands on them. You know what I mean? So one by one, these nation states that got U.S. paper, that's what's happening to their treasury. So they're trying to act like this is not really happening and that it ain't going to come here. Do you understand? Meanwhile, keep this in mind, with the Special Committee of 24, that's a dissolution of all colonial governments. Our people were supposed to be being taught nationality concurrently. And logically, the Moorish Science Temple is the first order of institution in place to do that. Of course, with all loyal, faithful Moors and all other true American citizens, which is why you've had the nations sign the rights of indigenous people. And as a matter of fact, as a counter move to the counter move that the COINTELPRO operatives have been doing to try to suppress this information, so you have many of your eastern countries and your SOS or your OAS, that's the Organization of American States, that's the other American countries. that created a non-aligned union of states. So you have the nations of the earth that have come together on the same principle of the United Nations, absence of the U.S. corporation in Britain, to carry out the decolonization. Meanwhile, all this information was supposed to be dispensed to us by these so-called leader preachers and all these other guys, because they were given that knowledge and command from the nations of the earth to dispense this information at all costs. Civic organizations, churches, etc., which you'll see in the rights of indigenous people that President Obama signed when he came back. And as you already know, we don't have to discuss it, it has not been done. You know, and then when you see the Moors who are active out here, they're attacked by the so-called grand governors of the Moorish Science Temple, who supposed to have done this job 50 years ago. And so when people see that appearance of division, it confuses them, but they don't know COINTELPRO operations, you see. And this is why it's important for people to know the fundamentals of what the Prophet set up, so that they can measure everybody by constitutional principles. As a matter of fact, that's why I read what I read, you know, earlier. So again, and keep in mind them so-called magi's, because remember, they're magi's, magistrates, magi's, they're all high priests. They already know because they got fast, you know, and so we have to be cognizant and we have to be confident on our end, so that when we step to them, that they're aware that you're stepping up the constitutional principle, because that's the only thing that keeps them in check. That's the covenant. So portmanteau, a discovery, as a standard, just adjust it to the need, and then go after them under RICO. Oh, when you go after that bond, then watch them start changing up. See, most of the time people look for remedy within the process that they put you through, which is a fraud. All they're doing is stealing your stuff and ransoming it back to you. You know.
That's what he did to me.
Oh yeah.
Tried on everybody else too. It's gonna come to a stop.
Yeah.
They'll sell it too. You wanna know how much they could do? I don't know if you're aware of this, but this one sister, she had her car towed for some parking or whatever, what have you. And she was in the midst of fighting it. And the car was still paid for though. See, it's still being paid for by the bank. You don't own it. You don't own it. So I'm gonna tell you how deeply they collude. So you know how they impound your conveyance, and then you gotta pay those. The bank went and paid the impound, right? Are y'all ready for this? That's right. What Brother Taj is saying, we really need to get on it, because they got something for you now. They collude, that's all they do. The bank went and paid the fees, the tickets, the impound fee, then went and took the car and basically kind of repossessed it as if the payment wasn't paid. Oh yes.
And told her that she had to pay the balloon payment.
Her payment was paid. It's just that this is how they could. No, it's not her car, because it's still the bank. Their car. Yeah, there you go. I hear you, sis. So then, so what they did was and probably some fine tune in the contract says that, but whether it does or it doesn't, that means that, you know, it's
no, see, in all, this is what it is. In all the dead pledges, mortgage means dead pledge. The contract is dead and you're the pledge. I see your eyebrows going like this. That's what mortgage means.
I understand what you're saying.
That's what mortgage is
dead, and you just pledging money.
They're not worried about us because we don't read. Mort is Latin for dead. Just like mortuary, morgue, mort is dead, Latin. Gage, contract or engagement, pledge. The contract is dead, you're pledged. So what you think you're buying, no, you're sharecropping your labor. The instrument or the conveyance of land, etc., the house, they're claiming that you're incompetent, and so they assign themselves as a trustee over your estate. That's where the straw comes in. That's what the 14th Amendment was for. And then, remember, that's not your name. That's a trade or transmitting utility created by them to dispense all activities in the trust and estate that you considered incompetent or incapable of running. And so they assign themselves as FOFR or trustee to your account, but then they twist it in saying that you're the beneficiary and the executor, which makes it collapse. So now all so-called payments, which cannot be made, it is only a tribute under fiat, right? You actually are compensating them for running your estate that you don't know you have. Then when you stop making payments, they're claiming that you haven't paid them for running your imaginary estate. So then they elect to sell the deed of trust to the FOFR's position because they don't own the property. You already owned it when you signed it. You understand? Then they put a sign on the door. You see them little slips they put on the door, and they send somebody out to see if first they try to get you to leave. You know, you better leave or we're going to tie your sneaks together. And he said, oh, I just got a mail. You're going to tie my sneaks together if I don't leave. And then second mail, we're going to tie them together, and this time it's going to be in a knot if you don't leave. Right? And then when people get all pumped out and then leave the house, right? And then they wait and they go put a sign on the door, a little slip paper. Field man comes out to see if it's occupied, right? Then nobody has sense enough to take it off and go back in. Then after about 6 weeks or so, they go back and check again. Nobody has sense enough to then they take it off and they claim the house claim that you've abandoned your estate.
That's right.
That's how the banks get it. Then they go to the escrow account that because it's your estate that you didn't tell them to close, then they take the fiat from the escrow account that they created in your name and they take that and fix the house up. And they claim it as a bet since they were trustees of your estate, so you left it on them. That's what foreclosure is.
And Taj, that's why what you're saying is it's our estate, so it's not the.
Once you understand it, all you have to do is claim your estate, but you better be in your proper person.
Straight.
Say it again.
You better be in your proper person. And this is what they're upset about because Moors are starting to figure this stuff out.
It's to a point where they won't even let you proclaim your nationality at certain court.
In violation of international law.
They sit there and say, I've seen courtrooms say that we don't accept these documents here. We was instructed, what they say, Crystal, up at Monmouth County, Ocean County?
We don't accept these ananymore.
Like flowers and Finch. Finch and flowers.
You know, and then I'll send you information out to go after them later. We'll put it up on the site.
They can't tell you what they
But you're going to court,
exactly.
Their public service is going to tell you what you can't do. This is another reason why when they deal with you, they will not put it on legal paper because they're not legal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're not legal.
Right.
They're racketeering. So you don't keep arguing with them, go after their bond. And like the prophet said, what? Our own press is the most powerful weapon in the hand of our group today. Without a press of our own, we'll never be able to shovel ourselves out from under the lies that are heaped upon us every day. When you're having an issue like this, basically everything that took place should be posted, so it can be read in Russia. The fact that you did a quo warranto, commanded their bond, and they didn't produce it, the FBI is required to come and remove them from office. Actually, the sheriff is. See, but we usually don't do that. We usually keep trying to deal with them direct. Wrong approach. You blast their names out there, then you get some actions. And make sure that you send a complaint to the High Court of Justice in The Hague because they don't have any seats of office. They're just simply foreign Europeans pretending that, as a matter of fact, they're impersonating officers. But since many of the Moors don't study law, they don't know to even go at them like that. They're trying to say, let me try to see if they'll let my stuff go. You better put their name up there. Then you start getting then what happens is they start throwing each other under the bus. They're all corrupt, but they'll start throwing each other under the bus. But what you've got to make them recognize that when they come after ill or obey, it's going to cost them. If you don't, then they're going to keep on doing the Negro acts. Because that's what they're doing. They're enforcing the Negro acts.
What is the biggest holdback on us starting our own press?
Say it again?
What is the biggest holdback on us
I
starting
need
our own
finances and I need it badly.
Our own what?
But you know what?
Other than,
But you know what? In this electrifying age of information, it's not really matter of finance. You just go on the web and do something on a newsletter like that now. And the Prophet transformed in 1929 and said the electrifying age is a hint to you. So doing a newspaper does, like you said, it would cost finances. And I used to do one before I even knew all of this.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes. So now you might not be able to do that without finances right now. But you can go on the press. I mean, you can go on the web.
I'll construct a newspaper right on the press.
Right on the website.
YouTube.
And you know what happens? And let's say this. What happens is, like, the day that they took the sister Africa Ray and all that, the sister and he got like 15,000 hits in one night. Now this was a revelation to us, right? It was an unveiling. And one night there was 15,000 hits on her site. You know why? Yeah. Because the only place they could come to hear anything from a perspective, that's when it was unveiled, is from the sites that we put up.
Yeah.
So don't be thinking you
and the real Grand Sheiks was supposed to step up immediately. But instead they attacked her in violation of what? Chapter 25 and Act 3. Accept a stranger before their own blood. Most of them didn't even have a deposition, don't even know what really took place. They ain't the real Moors, they ain't in our club.
Wow.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
In violation of their own law. They don't even know what was used. Do you understand? We're
oh, they don't like you at all.
I don't care.
You the most hated.
And guess what? I love it. You know, because I'm not here for them. I don't play with them. They can run around their peacock chests all day long. I'm here for these babies.
But you know
what I mean?
It's true, but they really are saying a lot to the people too.
It doesn't matter. You know
they're
why?
doing clubs like you're not. They're breathing.
Let's put it this way. We raised the bar so high that they can never touch it.
That's right.
Even though we haven't done the best that we can do.
No.
And the more they talk, the more they bury themselves. Because they had nothing to say to these people until they got conscious. Now they got everything to say. That's fine. But guess what? As these people study, they're going to recognize, reading the Prophet's literature, that these people are co-operatives.
And Taj, you know what else too, what they did as well? Again, with the electrifying age of information, they started feeling so puffed up about themselves and about the work that we were doing that they was contrary to, that they decided they were going to go onto the web and do their Sunday school and show everybody how it's done. Well, what happened was when they went on the web and showed everybody how they do it, it enforced what we were telling the people is that they were reverse church.
Yeah.
So they only really showed
Expose
that, you know
themselves.
what? They're right. They are doing reverse
themselves.
church.
And all people have to do is read the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, divine plea to the nations, Moorish leaders' message to America, just those three. Although you can read caveat emptor, religious controversy, just those three. And it will easily expose these people. That's another reason why they make it so difficult for people to get literature. Because they already know, once these people start really reading what the prophet said and his oral statements, you give somebody that come right out the woods, don't know nothing about this, give them the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The prophet makes plea to the nations. The Moorish leaders' message to America. Religious controversy. You don't even have to give them the questionnaire in the Quran. Just give them that. Right? And the FBI papers. And them grand sheiks and governors be lucky if they ain't hanging from the poles the next day. No, it's the truth. Especially them FBI papers. You know, that's why they don't want them Moors to see them FBI papers, because somebody who don't know nothing can see it and see what's wrong with this movement and why they ain't got no schools, why they don't have no buses, why there's no newspaper, why they're doing this reverse church thing, why you see these schisms of divisions and all these clubisms. Do you understand? It's so clear.
It's clear. May I say too that I in fact read out of 3,100 or some odd papers, I read close to 2,000 until it became extremely redundant. And if we could really get an understanding in ourselves about what happened in short, is, as you're saying, you could clearly see that after the prophet left the scene, nobody could really fill his shoes, although they wanted to. And then later, when it became to the 1940s, when this infiltration really came, and they said that we were being, Moors were sympathizing with the Japan. Well, okay, all right. So then they started questioning and infiltrating and going to each temple and questioning, and people started running their mouths. Those who didn't know yet, they, whatever. So now each temple started to feel as if they didn't know who to trust in their own temple membership. Various temples across the nation. So everybody shut up. And guess what? That's what they do now. They don't even talk to each other. A temple don't talk to another temple.
Then they give one of the COINTELPRO, if you pay attention, they give one of the COINTELPRO Grand Chiefs to do an interview with the newspaper, and then they attack the other Moors.
Well, let's add this too.
I've seen that.
Yes, they do all the time. But remember this: when they tell you that they're making an agreement with the state, remember that states can't make treaties agreements. So that shows you that the Grand Chiefs don't know law.
No, it's no.
And they're trying to sell you out.
They don't.
No, they're trying to sell their people out. Yes, they're trying to sell their people out.
They figure the Moorish Americans, because they've been controlling them, don't know better and won't charge them and remove them from office according to the additional bylaws, Act 1, which I read, and caveat emptor. See, because they figure if they control the education, they keep these people just spooky doing hallelujah to you. You know what I'm saying? Well, that's what they're doing. They seat warmers and bill payers. And then the next generation don't have a chance because they don't have a reference point. You see, and every generation that goes down has less and less reference point. That's why they don't want them schools in them temples. Yet it's a requirement that every temple have a school. If it ain't got school, they ain't temple yet. You see the whole point? It doesn't have a news press. It's not a temple.
But then
if they don't teach constitutional principles, it's not a temple. Those are at the heart of the movement. How many temples you walk in where they're teaching constitutional principles? That's at the heart of the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. And yet they get away with it because people aren't reading. You see, how can you get away when the divine warning by the prophet for the nations says, help me in my mission to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution of the United States of America, and then you go to a Moorish American in a temple and they don't know constitutional law? What does it tell you?
That's right. Here it is.
And so when situations happen like that, they don't even know how to approach. They don't even know what quo warranto is. They don't even know what law is. And the prophet said, what? If you don't believe the program I have for my people and citizens is correct, go to those who know law. The prophet didn't teach no law stuff. He didn't teach that civic stuff. And the people believe them. Because they say Grand Shiki guy. I'm serious. That's what our problem is. These traitors have been running the temples. That's why it's 101 years and we're suffering. And your car's going.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be.
Yeah. That upsets my whole livelihood.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I gotta go to work. I gotta make money.
And guess what? You're going to do, Grand Sheik, make sure he does an allodial cost schedule in lieu of a fee schedule, and you're going to do a gold eagle for every day that they got it.
Gold eagle?
Oh,
that'll fly.
I'm serious. And guess what? And you're going to lean them. And when you construct it and you post it, the lien stands, and they're going to have the answer to it.
Yeah.
Lean the bond, right?
You daggone right.
In the bond
and see, the Moorish Science Temple is a regency. So you're empowered to make law. Your stuff stands. They got to rebut it.
That's right.
And you put their name up and post it on websites, guess what? Tribals can't ignore that. See, and this is what must be understood. People think courtrooms are just those rooms. Court is society. Most of court activity is done on paper. That's why he says, what? If you don't believe that the program's right for that, that the prophet set up for the citizens and the people, who said go to those no law. Your government officials. How do you communicate with government officials? Through writs. Affidavits. And they don't teach that, do they? See, the more and more you study the prophet, the more and more you recognize these grand sheiks are traitors. Don't excuse them because they got the titles. You know, like if somebody say they're professor, and then talking about they don't know how to profess, and you say, well, he didn't understand. No, he's a professor. Well, you know, and somebody say, you know, you say, well, that's my boy. He's a good surgeon, you got a headache? Go see my boy, because he got a sign hanging out there, right? Then you walk in the office and everything, he rolls out this dirty towel with these rusty butter knives. The best thing to do at that time is get him run. Because he just demonstrated that he's not a surgeon. And this is what they've been getting away with these, you know, with nepotism, favoritism, assigning people to positions when they're really corrupt or either unqualified, and this is what they've done to this movement. But it's by design, it's not accidental, it's by design.
Yeah, that whole system down there, it seems like that, it's on like the buddy,
it's a they're racketeers. See, but the way you're going to get around that, you go after their bonds. Don't keep arguing with them, go after their bonds and post it. Remember? This is what was happening before. They had two law firms in Philadelphia battling us. You know, they wouldn't accept his filing in Jersey, so I took it and I tweaked it and I took it to Sixth and Market in Philadelphia and filed it there. Because really, I wanted the number. You know, because I already knew they weren't gonna let it get. I wanted the number. See, once you got a number, now they got to deal with it. And once they realized what they had, once they sat on that board for years, they was trying to get it dismissed on Federal Rule 12b-6.
Diversity.
12b-6, which is diversity. You know, it's the very issue, diversity, right? Then Judge Prater, which is a German, he says, it's unintelligible and all that stuff. Well, how come they got to do law firms fighting us if it's unintelligible? You know what I mean? But the deal they couldn't let us. They wanted us to disappear. You know what I'm saying? We painted them in a corner. So they dismissed it with prejudice. The next month the feds came in up there and you seen little pictures, 17 heads, you know, they little pictures in Asbury Park. They made sure they didn't put that on the website and telling everybody. Then Asbury Park Press wanted to do an interview. They came to the temple, did an interview with us, and made it all scratchy. And you know they always misrepresent everything. Then we went back down to Wall Township, and we went back down to Asbury Park with the detectives and stuff for all the warrants they had on the so-called straw. Everything disappeared. They didn't have nothing on the record nowhere. Yeah, they did. You know, but the deal of when you start going after their bonds, people start acting like differently.
Like in her case, like this is my wife here. In her case, like when she was there at the house, she could tell you like what they done, how they broke in there.
See, everything that occurred should be documented. See, it shouldn't be a story that's told with us. It should be documented, right. And that stuff should already be at the High Court in The Hague. You know, we'll get right in time. So, we have to teach the people protocols, and these things must be done like immediately. And that's your protection, because the international community is watching. It's just that we keep on staying in these little pockets. If you don't speak up, they can't hear you. You know, the wheel don't squeak, don't get no oil.
That's right.
You understand? Because Obama. Peace. We gotta get right
before we roll. All right. Yeah, we about to roll. So peace and love. Congratulations.
I'm trying to see what's saying.
Business, man. I'm trying to get this business for a while.